Tonight I'm going to tell you a story about a young man mourning the loss of a grandparent, deciding to do a little bit of dark urban exploring. He and his friend decided to go explore a abandoned house that was in his grandparents' neighborhood that had a reputation of being haunted. The house always scared the man as a child, and he decided tonight he was going to conquer that fear. Never in a million years did the man imagine he would find something so strange that it would change his life forever. It was a dark night in a small town in Australia. And for some reason, after he had thoroughly explored the house, they decided to check under the porch for anything interesting. The man crawled under the porch with his flashlight, and he was met with a realistic set of eyes staring back at him, and a face that made a grown man startle. After bumping his head, he had to steady his nerve to look again. After his heart had settled down and back into his chest, he was able to retrieve the strange object that scared him so bad. It was a doll, but not a cute cherub-faced looking little doll that we are so accustomed to seeing nowadays. This one was hand-carved out of wood with a grotesque grin on its face. Long, exaggerated features reminiscent of an evil, wicked witch with a long nose and a pointed chin, lifelike eyes that looked back at the man. The man stuffed the doll down into a burlap sack and tossed it in the back seat of his car for the trip home. The man said that as the car lights passed on the lonely road, the bag looked like it was moving in the back seat, like the doll was trying to escape the bag, hence giving it its name. Yes, tonight we're talking about the haunted, and some say cursed, Let Me Out doll. Welcome to Horror History and Haunting. I'm your host, Christina. As always, liking, subscribing, and sharing is appreciated. Now on with the strange tale of Let Me Out. In 1972, Kerry Walton had a tragedy when one of his grandparents had passed away. And as anyone would, he traveled back to his hometown, which in this case was a place called Wagga Wagga, Australia, most Australian name I've ever heard, for the funeral. While he was there, he and a friend began to reminisce about stories of their childhood, and they remembered this house that was supposedly haunted in their neighborhood. All the kids in the neighborhood were terrified of this house because the house was rumored to have been haunted, and there were tales about an old man that lived there that carried a burlap sack full of severed heads for some reason. That was the story that the kids told. Kerry and his friend, as adults, realized that the story was hogwash, and they decided to dare each other to face their fear of the old house, and on their little exploratory mission and excursion, that is where they found Letta the doll. Letta stands at only around 3 feet tall. He is hand carved in exquisite detail down to eyelashes on his face. He has piercing glass eyes that appears to move as you move across the room and follow a person that's looking at him. His hair is a wig made of actual human hair. The clothes that he was found in crumbled to dust when it was touched, so Kerry had to have his token green suit custom made for him. Under the wig, Letta had an area on the back of the head that Kerry describes as being very brain-like, which he thinks is unusual. Most likely, Letta started his life as a marionette at one time, but lost his strings long ago. When Kerry first brought Letta home, there were lots of strange activities in the home. His kids were terrified of the doll. They said it gave them chronic, vivid nightmares. The doll began moving around the house on its own, and some people have actually seen Letta talk. Even though he's carved from wood, they've seen his mouth move as he talked. People that have come in contact with Letta also describe a feeling of being uncomfortable and sad, and some have even fainted at the sight of the doll. Carrie claims that he finds doll-sized scuff marks on his floor after a night of Letta being in the house, where Letta supposedly moves around the house on his own. Carrie also claims that every time he takes the doll anywhere, it always rains, and they think it's associated to the boy spirit attached to the doll. He has a habit of blowing bulbs when people have tried to film him, like news crews and people like that. Dogs seem to have a very adverse reaction to the doll. When it is brought close to a dog, a normal calm dog will become agitated and immediately try to attack the doll on sight, and it's like an instantaneous reaction. Cats seem strangely immune to the doll and have no reaction to the doll whatsoever. A psychic close to the family says that through various seances, she was able to determine that the doll was made by a person that was in a deep, deep despair of mourning. He was very depressed about a death of a very young little boy, which tragically drowned for some reason. The psychic also claims that the doll will wiggle in her lap, like settling in like a little kid when she holds the doll sometimes, especially during interviews. It's like he gets anxious in front of cameras. Carrie wanted to know more about the doll, so he took it to the Australian Museum in Sydney, and the scientists there were able to tell Carrie, based on what they were able to observe, that the doll was over 200 years old at the time, which this was a long time ago, so the doll's probably over 250 years old now. And they were able to date it because of the nails used in the construction of the doll's shoes at the bottom of its foot. Those nails were used around the time, and the style of the doll told them that the doll was most likely made from an Eastern European wandering gypsy. Gypsies have a long history with magic and curses, so there's no wonder the doll is haunted or has an attachment. Carrie often tells the story about the one time he did decide to try to sell the doll, Letta. He said that his family was really suffering a hardship at the time and he really needed the money, so he posted the doll online and someone offered him $400 for the doll. He couldn't believe his luck, so he loaded Letta up in the car in the back seat and made his way to the woman's house. Of course, it was raining at the time, because every time Letta is taken anywhere, it rains. When he got there, he got out, opened the back door to get Letta from the back seat to retrieve the doll, and that's when a strange force seemed to take over him. And he said no matter what he tried to do and how hard he tried, he couldn't make himself reach out for the doll to take the doll out of the car. So he just got back into the car and took Letta back home and canceled the sale, and has never tried to sell the doll since. Carrie said he would never sell him for $1 million now. He's part of the family. Even though Letta seems to unnerve people and people feel like the doll is cursed, it seems to have been a blessing for Carrie's family. After receiving the doll, Carrie's collectible business began to boom and it is very successful now. Letta has been on various news outlets and TV shows and magazines, and Carrie travels around with Letta to different oddity and paranormal conventions where people can hold the doll and even takes pictures with Letta. There is an actual Instagram and a Facebook account dedicated to Letta the doll. If you're interested in checking that out, it's under Letta Me Out. So what do you think? Do you think a little boy's soul is attached to the doll? Could it be possessed by something else entirely? Or is everything connected to the doll some sort of coincidence? In the comment section down below, I'd love to continue the conversation with you. I love answering comments. As always, I want to thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. Good night and sweet dreams. Bye-bye.